Hi, everybody, and we want to welcome you to our inaugural virtual JDRF Promise Ball. I'm Joe D'Ambrosio from WTIC News Talk 1080 and Fox 61. And normally on this date, we would all be dressed to the nines at the convention center, getting ready to have what has become maybe the best social event of the year, the Promise Ball. Obviously, these are unprecedented times. So what we have decided to do, the great folks at JDRF, is come up with this virtual JDRF Promise Ball. And if you're a regular at our events, you know how near and dear this is to my heart. I have been T1D since 1982, or as I like to tell people, since I had hair. That's a long time. And what we're trying to do is make the world better for everybody, but especially the younger people who have type 1 diabetes. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us here tonight. It's a little bit different. We certainly hope you are doing well and that you're taking all the precautions to stay safe and healthy during this unprecedented time. Now, as I said, as somebody who lives with T1D 24/7, I'm so grateful for all that you do, and I am in awe of the amazing solidarity and support that we have seen from our community during these unsettling times. Now, I want to give some special recognitions to some very special people. Number one is our 2020 Promise Ball Chair, Jane Soroski, as well as the Planning and Auction Committee. Thank you for staying with it. Thank you for staying the course. Tony Abate and the Cigna Corporation, who to date have donated $2 million to JDRF, as well as countless time, energy, and support. The Fishbone and Wallach families, who have spent a lot of time planning and promoting this event, and who you will be hearing from a little bit later. We don't want to forget UTC CEO Greg Hayes, who was last year's Promise Ball honoree. Of course, last year's Promise Ball chairman, John Cantillon and Greg Marshall, they set the bar really, really high, if you may remember. We raised a record $1.8 million. What's to say this year we can't do better than that? And we want to thank our platinum sponsors, Cigna, EY, Travelers, and Pratt & Whitney, as well as the rest of our Promise Ball sponsors for their support by standing by us this year. Now, 50 years ago, a few parents and their love for their children started what has become the world's leading type 1 diabetes research organization. The power of us is limitless, and tonight we are here to recognize the impact of these past 50 years. We're here to look forward because together, now more than ever, we can continue to change the world. All right, everybody, we have a great evening planned for you. Not as long as the normal Promise Ball, which I'm sure for some of you, you're applauding at home. Let's kick it off here with a preview of some of our fabulous auction items. Now, these items are available to bid on now for everyone who has registered. All right, even though they're not playing right now, the Celtics were having a great year. We can give the little one in your world a chance of a lifetime to become a Boston Celtics ball boy or girl at a Celtics Atlanta Hawks game during the 2020-2021 season. The package includes assisting Celtics players during warmups. Maybe you can help Marcus Smart with his jump shot. God knows he needs it. You'll get an autographed basketball, 3 Loge-level tickets, a Celtics t-shirt and a hat, and a photo at center court at the Vault. The package is good for a ball kid plus 2 guests for a total of 3 people. What a great way to celebrate the return of the NBA. Enjoy a specialty tour and tasting for 2 at the Samuel Adams Brewery in Boston, a 3-course dinner with beer pairing at Post 390 Urban Tavern, a $200 Amex gift card, and a 2-night stay in a standard guest room at the Fairmont Copley Plaza with daily breakfast for 2. Let's be honest, we've all been eating a lot of meals in our own houses. We've been spending every night in our own beds. This would be a great getaway when things are clear. And also we have our high-end wines and spirits, which is always a great part of our night. It includes a 2016 Opus One bottle of red wine. Now, the 2016 Opus One is remarkably elegant and bright, offering sumptuous aromas of fresh red and blue fruit, baking spices and vanilla, and a delicate fragrance of spring florals. I practiced that all night. Harmonious and lively, the flavors linger to create an enduring finish with touches of dark chocolate and espresso. Add a bottle of this special wine to your collection. Now, this is just a few of the great items that we have for you. And don't forget, every dollar gets us closer to a cure, and gets us closer to our fundraising goal in honor of JDRF's 50th anniversary. Now to bid, go to JDRF Promise Ball, all one word, .org/auction. Don't include all one word in there because then you won't get the website. All right. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our JDRF CEO, Dr. Aaron Kowalski, who has a special message for all of you watching tonight.
Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Aaron Kowalski, JDRF's President and CEO. We hope that you and your families are safe and well. Necessity is the mother of invention, or so the saying goes. And as a researcher, I can attest to the validity of this statement. Where we find ourselves during this time, in the interest of prioritizing your safety and well-being, we've taken the JDRF galas from the ballroom to your living rooms. So tonight, I welcome you to this year's virtual ballroom. I sincerely thank the volunteers and staff for their innovation and creativity in continuing to drive JDRF's mission in this new, high-tech, and socially distancing friendly way. While we can't gather in our gala finest to enjoy one another's company and to celebrate in person the incredible outcomes and impact that our galas have on the important mission of JDRF, we still gather with the same passion and commitment that has always propelled JDRF forward. JDRF's strength has always been our dedicated people. It's rooted in our very foundation. 50 years ago, two mothers came together to make the world a better place for their children and for other people burdened with T1D. In that moment, the power of us was born. In a few minutes, we'll recognize the power of us by sharing some inspiring stories and even have a little fun from the comfort of our living rooms as we do what we all do so well, come together to create a world without T1D. From the bottom of my heart and from all of us at JDRF nationally, thank you for joining us this evening. We thank you for your commitment and passion for this cause and for raising your virtual bid cards. And even though we aren't sitting across the table from one another, you are continuing to make an impact. Life with type 1 diabetes doesn't stop because of social distancing. Diagnoses don't stop, and the need for cures remains as great as it's always been. Please know that the difference is happening because of you. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Aaron. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Right now, I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce Dr. Kevin Harold, JDRF's New England's Nancy Jones Diabetes Champion recipient for 2020. Dr. Harold is receiving this award for his leadership in TrailNet's tebelizumab prevention study, showing that the immunotherapy drug tebelizumab delayed T1D diagnosis a median of 2 years in high-risk children and adults. I did not practice that one all night. These results and the potential impact for people living with T1D and their families is exactly why JDRF funds prevention research. We are presenting this award to Dr. Harold as he was planning to attend the Greater Connecticut Western Massachusetts Promise Ball in honor of the Wallachs and Fishbones.
The reason I do this and the reason that many of my colleagues do this is because we're able to improve the lives of our patients. My name is Kevin Harold. I'm a professor of immunobiology and internal medicine at Yale University. I have 3 jobs. I run a lab, I do clinical trials, and I see patients. So I'm always sort of balancing that. You know, I actually think it's one of the rare gifts of my position, which is that I can talk to patients, including patients who are involved in clinical trials.
Kevin's done so much of the the cutting edge work in the field of type 1 diabetes. His recent groundbreaking paper in New England Journal showing a very clear clinical effect with a new drug.
I was able to get some funding from the JDRF to get this started, which was, you know, I think really kind of the lifeline for me. We got started on the clinical trial and the data started to look very good. It involves ways of identifying who's going to get the disease and monitoring the immunopathogenesis of the disease in patients. And eventually this led to a trial with this drug in people with new onset type 1 diabetes. And it showed that a single course of treatment with anti-CD3 antibody would delay the loss of insulin production in people with new onset disease.
The outcome of the trial was a success. The people who received the actual drug had a delay of at least 2 years from the anticipated date of diagnosis.
To be able to intervene in people who do not yet have the disease, but have immunologic markers that they are going to get the disease, and delay the onset, if not prevent it, is a very significant finding.
To have it work, it was unbelievable. It's a game changer. The whole field is completely different. And I think that's purely because of his persistence and passion.
Some of the earlier trials of immune therapies were successful, but the problem is they entailed lifelong immune suppression if you're going to continue it. And there was significant risk with that. So the difference here was we gave the drug for a brief period of time and stopped the drug. You were not chronically immune suppressed, and yet there were effects of the drug that lasted even 2 years or beyond that. So that began to bring to mind this notion of immunologic tolerance.
Once you have something that really works, then you can ask, how is it working? How is it changing the immune system in such a way that you stop the attack on self and stop autoimmunity? By doing these types of analyses, we can work backwards and re-engineer the drugs to be even better and to work more effectively.
Type 1 diabetes does have very, very strong genetic determinants. But I think we're also at a point in the field where now we should start asking questions, maybe we should think a lot broader. Maybe we ought to be thinking about the general population. As our ability to identify immunologic markers improves, then we should begin thinking broadly about how we might be able to actually prevent these diseases from occurring.
It's a chronic disease that affects not only the person who has it, but the entire family. And Dr. Harold talks about the participants and their families as his heroes, and I have definitely come to see them that way as well.
JDRF is a huge source for physician scientists as they continue endeavors to improve the lives of those with type 1 diabetes.
JDRF is sort of a place where all this science comes together and is used to understand the problem of diabetes.
In Dr. Harold's case, JDRF has continuously supported what has become this monumental discovery.
I'm optimistic, and I hope it's within my lifetime that we can just stop the disease from occurring. I had a close colleague who had diabetes, and we would sort of joke, what are we going to do if diabetes is cured? He would say, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to go to a park bench. I'm going to sit there. I'm not going to think about what I just ate. I'm not going to think about what activity I've done recently or I'm going to do. I'm not going to check my blood sugar. I'm just going to sit there and just enjoy the time.
Be the momentum.
Be the momentum.
Be the progress.
Be the progress.
Be the cure.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin, for your significant impact on the work of JDRF's mission. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Neil and Lisa Wallach, who will be presenting this year's honorees with the prestigious Star of Hope Award. Lisa is the incoming vice chair of JDRF's International Board of Directors. Lisa is the past chair of JDRF's Nominating and Governments Committee and serves on many other JDRF committees, nationally and locally. Lisa's the past president of the New England Chapter Board of Directors. She's the 2019 recipient of JDRF's prestigious Jim Tyree Chairman's Award. Neil has raised nearly $1 million for JDRF through many athletic endeavors, including the Boston Marathon, the New York City Marathon, JDRF rides, and Ironman competitions. He also coaches other runners on the Boston Marathon JDRF team. Lisa and Neil have contributed well over $1 million to JDRF, and their ongoing investment and fundraising efforts are impactful and inspiring. I give you Neil and Lisa Wallach.
I am so proud to present the Star of Hope Award to my parents, Marilyn and Gerald Fishbone. After my brother Scott was diagnosed with T1D in 1970 at the age of 18 months, my parents leaned in to do whatever they could to find a cure. My mother founded the New Haven chapter of JDRF, then known as JDF, with the first chapter office being our kitchen table. Scott and I grew up surrounded by envelopes to stuff with solicitation requests and listening to meetings my parents hosted of fellow parents of children with T1D, supporting each other and encouraging one another to ask anyone and everyone they knew to contribute time and money to fund the research needed to conquer the disease. My mother's passionate commitment that continues to this day has been an incredible inspiration to so many, including me, and I have learned so much from watching her work, seeing every person and business as a potential supporter and never missing an opportunity to make the case for JDRF. My father has also been an incredible inspiration to me and so many others. He was the first physician to join JDRF's research committee, where he served for 42 years. He also proudly served as chairman of JDRF's international board from 1981 to 1984, leading the organization through some challenging times with his calm and quiet but impactful leadership style. His sensitivity, empathy, and integrity kept the board and the organization intact and moving forward with a clear strategic direction, which has enabled the ongoing growth and success of JDRF. My father spent hundreds of hours reviewing grants and making sure that the funds raised were invested wisely and strategically, positioning JDRF for the incredible progress we have seen in research and bringing us closer to our goal of a world without T1D. My parents' example became that much more relevant when our own son, Harris, was diagnosed with T1D in 2001 at the age of 5. Neil and I immediately followed the path my parents had forged, leaning in to support JDRF at the New England chapter and nationally. Our family remains as committed now as when T1D first entered our lives back in 1970 to do whatever we can to cure and prevent this disease. Neil, Scott, Harris, and I are humbled to continue our parents' legacy and are honored to present them, along with my incredible in-laws, Joan and Milt Wallach, with the Star of Hope Award.
Thank you so much for this meaningful award. Jerry and I could not be more proud of how JDRF has grown over the 50 years of our involvement and the impact it has had on the lives of our son Scott, our grandson Harris, and millions of others. We are thrilled to be sharing this award with our amazing in-laws, Joan and Milt Wallach, who share our passion for JDRF and our commitment to finding a cure. And we are so proud of our children and grandchildren for their dedication to continuing our work. We are grateful to everyone for their commitment to this important cause, and we are confident that with your help, we are going to get over the finish line to a world without T1D. Thank you.
I am so proud to present the Star of Hope Award to my parents, Joan and Milton Wallach. For years, they were supporters of JDRF because of their friendship with Marilyn and Jerry. My father was the coach of the basketball team that Scott and I played on together when we were just kids. And even then, we were all well aware of the challenges that came with T1D. But when our son Harris was diagnosed with T1D, my parents made JDRF and curing type 1 diabetes a personal mission. My father has served as the president of the JDRF New Haven chapter board, and he continues to serve as a board member of the Greater Connecticut Western Massachusetts chapter. He has leveraged additional resources to help cure type 1 diabetes in impactful and innovative ways by founding the Connecticut Stem Cell Coalition, successfully advocating for legislation resulting in $100 million in state funding, and by creating the Metabolic Research Alliance, a consortia of Yale, UConn, Jackson Labs, and the Weizmann Institute in Israel. I am truly inspired by my father's tireless commitment and his tenacious dedication to building coalitions and to engaging new partners and resources to have an even greater impact than anyone can have alone, which will help us to accomplish our goal of curing type 1 diabetes. My mother has also worked tirelessly as my father's partner every step of the way. She's been a wise and strategic advisor, and she's helped enormously with my father's efforts. She's wielded her own impact by creating and running the successful Brew Free Cure event to raise support from new sources. Lisa, Harris, and I are so grateful for their passionate commitment to this cause and for the example that they have set for us, for our children, and for so many others on how to have extraordinary impact if you're willing to work hard and engage others in the effort. I am honored to present them, along with my incredible in-laws, Marilyn and Jerry, with the Star of Hope Award.
Joan and I truly appreciate being recognized for our efforts to support the mission of JDRF to prevent, treat, and to ultimately cure type 1 diabetes, T1D. It is especially meaningful to be cited together with Marilyn and Jerry Fishbone, who are our dear friends, as well as being related by the marriage of Neil and Lisa. Joan and I are aware of the significance of being honored, but we are even more honored for the privilege we have been given to work on behalf of JDRF, which continues to wisely utilize the funds we all contribute to support research being done by outstanding investigators. Kevin Herold is one such individual whose efforts, as you know, are leading to the delay of onset and possible prevention of T1D. On the treatment side, JDRF also supports the work of Stu Weinzimmer, also of Yale, whose efforts have been instrumental in the development of the hybrid artificial pancreas. The desire to highlight the achievements of the Yale Diabetes Center and its outstanding researchers and their connection to JDRF is one of the reasons that Joan created Brew for a Cure. This award will therefore motivate us to work even harder, especially in these challenging times, to contribute to the efforts to halt the devastation of T1D for individuals such as our grandson Harris and his uncle Scott, and for all of those others who have been afflicted by type 1 diabetes. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Dr. Gerald and Marilyn Fishbone and Dr. Milton and Joan Wallach for your longstanding leadership and support. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for a very special part of our program where we have the opportunity to hear from Marilyn and Jerry's son, Scott, who's been living with T1D since he was diagnosed at the age of 18 months over 50 years ago. Now, Scott has served as a board member, advocacy team member, and golf co-chairperson in JDRF's New Jersey Metro and Rockland County chapter. He will share a bit about his own experience and then introduce his nephew, Harris Wallach, our Fund a Cure speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Scott Fishbone.
Thank you for inviting me to participate in this incredible honor given to my parents and Joan and Milt Wallach for their decades of hard work and dedication to JDRF. And to introduce tonight's Fund a Cure speaker, my nephew Harris, of whom I am so proud. When I was diagnosed 50 years ago, there were no insulin pumps, CGMs, and closed-loop systems. My parents would squeeze my wet diaper onto a test strip and try to match it with the various colors on the side of a bottle to approximate my sugar level. We never imagined being here listening to my nephew speak about his life with T1D. The likely outcomes back then were dead or cured. Fortunately, that is no longer the case. And that's in large part thanks to JDRF and its supporters like you. Tonight, we are here to both celebrate how far we have come, but also to remind ourselves that we are not yet done. So while I wish this opportunity to introduce Harris was not necessary, I could not be prouder to do so. I remember the day of his diagnosis in 2001. My parents were babysitting for Harris at the time, and my father recognized the signs immediately. My wife Betsy and I went to Boston to help. While I had already lived it, I don't know that I truly understood the toll T1D takes on the entire family until that moment, when I saw my 5-year-old nephew screaming and fighting my sister as she tried to give him his insulin injection. This was one of the most heartbreaking moments of my life. But despite this initial and completely justified reaction, I've watched Harris grow, adapt, and tackle the challenges of living with T1D like a true champion, living his life to the fullest and managing his diabetes, while under the permanently watchful eye of my big sister Lisa and my brother-in-law Neil. I don't think either Harris or I remember life without T1D, but I know that we are both hopeful to find out what that is like one day soon. Now, let me proudly hand the virtual microphone to my nephew Harris so he can share his story with you. And I ask that you respond with your generosity so that we can find a cure and improve the lives of people living with T1D until we do. Thank you.
First off, thank you, Uncle Scott, for your kind words and support. You've been such an amazing role model for me over the years, and I would not be as comfortable with my own diabetes if it were not for the knowledge and experience you have shared with me and the example that you have set. I am honored to speak to you tonight. I wanted to thank you all for your flexibility and shout out the tremendous JDRF staff for being able to shift gears to a virtual setting so quickly and effectively. I hope you guys are all doing what you need to stay safe right now. A little bit about me. My name is Harris Wallach. I'm 24. But as my uncle shared, what brings me here tonight is that I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in 2001. At the time, I was 5 years old, so the burden fell directly on my parents. As most T1D parents know, having a child with diabetes immediately changes your life. Alongside the usual challenge, they now had to learn how to draw up insulin syringes, to weigh and measure every morsel of food, and to explain to a young child why they need to prick their finger 8 times a day. But apart from the practical challenges, the emotional toll is one we don't speak about enough. Juggling the knowledge that your child could go into a coma or even die from just one wrong dosage of insulin, while trying to provide them the sense of normalcy that any kid deserves, is an incredibly hard ask for anyone. Since that day in 2001, I don't think my parents have gone more than an hour without thinking about my diabetes. I am so thankful for the tireless support and all that they have done for me. When I think about the types of technology available to us when I was younger, I remember how my parents used to have to wake me up at 2 a.m. every night to check my blood sugar, only to go back to sleep hoping I wouldn't crash later on, having no visibility other than that moment. Nights like tonight, galas, walks, and exceptional generosity have changed that story. They have enabled JDRF to drive life-changing research advancements like continuous glucose monitors and artificial pancreas systems, from scientific research development to human clinical trials to FDA approval and into real people's hands. Because of these efforts, I, and also my parents, can now sleep soundly through the night knowing my CGM will alert me if my blood sugar is out of range. I am so thankful to all of you who have supported JDRF and for making this possible. Now that I'm an adult, type 1 diabetes has brought me a whole new set of challenges. I am now fully in control of my diabetes, but that means I also fully grasp the dangers of living with this disease. The average person with type 1 thinks about their diabetes over 200 times a day. Every decision I make is influenced, and diabetes is ever present. And I've never had the luxury of experiencing a childhood without coming to terms with my own mortality. I think about the nearly 200 years that my grandparents and parents collectively have put into the fight against diabetes, and I'm impassioned to fight even harder. We have made so much progress in the quality of life for someone living with diabetes, but this is not enough. Every day, JDRF is committed to achieving our ultimate goal of curing and preventing T1D. And by coming together in support of this mission, we will get there. Which is why, especially during this crisis, when so many are impacted, we are counting on anyone that is able to give to dig that much deeper to help us reach our goal of a world without diabetes. Please join me and my family in investing in JDRF and give as generously as you can. Thank you.
Harris, thank you for sharing your story here tonight. It was not only touching, but it really conveyed to the people who were watching the many challenges those impacted by T1D face every day, as well as the hope they have that one day we'll find a cure. Well, folks, it's been a great evening, even considering the circumstances. Thank you to Dr. Gerald and Marilyn Fishbone and Dr. Milton and Joan Wallach for your unwavering commitment. Thank you once again to our beloved Platinum sponsors, Cigna, EY, Travelers, and Pratt & Whitney, as well as the rest of the Promise Bear sponsors for your generosity. Thank you to Harris, Neil, and Lisa Wallach, and Scott Fishbone for inspiring tonight's giving. Please don't forget to keep bidding in our silent auction, because every winning bid supports an incredible cause and brings us closer to a world without T1D. And finally, your investment in JDRF will improve the lives of the T1D community by further lessening the burden of T1D on those living with the disease and their support systems, while funding the additional research needed to cure and prevent the disease. By making a 100% tax-deductible donation to this year's Fund a Cure Challenge, you will be helping to change the lives of the millions of families affected by T1D. Thanks to everybody in our local chapter for helping to put this together. Thanks to John Muskrat, who's played the role of the cameraman tonight, and to all the great staff here at JDRF. Next year, it will be the best Promise Ball ever. On behalf of everybody, thanks and have a good night.